We are building a traditional smokehouse. So we can do meat, we can do cheese, but most importantly, so we can do botanicals to add flavor to some of our products. And in the last video, we got the foundation done. The foundation meaning the concrete slab, the cinder blocks, a space for our chimney to output into, and now it's time to move on to the frame.
So, I live in a forest, and what that means is when it's windy, trees, they fall down, and then they sit there and kind of rot. So, you know what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense to go and buy dimensional lumber when I don't need it. If I can get away with not using dimensional lumber, I like to. If I need to use it, I use it. But by and large, when you're building outbuildings like this smokehouse, I think using some, non-dimensional lumber gives things some character. And, I mean, god damn, it feels good when both financially and environmentally, that's an easier word to say, there's no impact. I didn't pay for any of this. This is sequestered carbon that I am keeping sequestered, keeping stored. This is doing great benefit to both my pocketbook and my environment. This is wood that fell down. I did not cut it down. It was just laying there. So if you live with trees, use the trees. Quit going out and buying stuff that has been imported and shipped and cut and blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah, okay, this does take a little bit more time. But in the grand scheme of things, if you got time, just do it. I'm not framing on a commercial level where like it's efficiency. The fun is in the doing, not in the having. That's why I'm doing it this way, because it both financially and environmentally makes a ton of sense. I think maybe that's the one thing you just kind of have to accept, is that yes, it will be a little not perfectly straight, but again, for an outbuilding, for a smokehouse, that's fine. That works just fine. You don't have to have perfection at every step of the way. So that's the plan for this build. Is I've got a nice solid cinder foundation to keep any pests out, and then I'm kind of pole barn style. Anywho, go out into the woods, find some trees that fell down that are of appropriate diameter to what I need, relatively straight. Take off all the bark to keep the bugs out. Be fun to do timber framing, but I do not have the time for right now. So I think I'll just knock, knock, knock.
So one of the first things you got to do when working with lumber like this is you need to take off all of the branches to make it more manageable. You need to take off all of the bark to keep any bugs out that like to nest in the bark. And then you kind of got to figure out how to fit round things together in a somewhat kind of square way. So I did that by cutting out some notches that I could square up just using, a little hand pruning saw, made a bunch of lines, and then once I had the fibers of the wood severed, I could actually go in there with a chisel and then just easily knock bits of wood out and actually get it squared up. So then I had a nice seat for the end of my crossbeam to sit in. Normally in timber framing, what you would do is then drive in like a wooden peg and kind of have it fit in there a bit better, but yeah, I didn't do that. I basically just used hammer and nails, but at least it had a nice kind of positive sit. A little bit awkward to work with at this stage because it wasn't fully square. And now I've got my roof set up so I can get some shakes up there. I'm doing board style shakes. Basically just means that I'm using less lathing boards. Lathing boards are the things you nail the shakes to. Here I am actually prepping those lathing boards. This is all offcuts from a local sawmill. I got an entire truckload, as much as I could fit in the truck, of cedar offcuts for $30. They're not straight, they've got some errors, they've got some issues, they need a little bit of prep work like removing the bark. But for my purposes, works just fabulous. On the sides of the smokehouse, I'm doing shingle style, so a quarter of the shake is exposed, whereas in board style, a third of the shake is exposed. It just basically means more or less laughing boards, depending on your preference, and shake style looks a little bit nicer and put together. The other issue with using used shakes is, again, I mean, with all of this, it just requires a little bit of extra prep work. So I just got to square it up. And here you can see I've got a quarter of the shake exposed. So the one thing I wish I didn't do was try and have my round wood framing exposed, because it meant a lot more complexity in this build than I think I really needed. I kind of just wish I put the shingles on the exterior of my framing rather than trying to make the framing exposed. And while I was working on all the shingles, Michaela came to help me build the door. Again, door took a little bit of finessing because of uneven lumber, but at the end of the day, I think it adds a lot more character. She did an absolutely fantastic job building this door for us. Basically just had to figure out how to fit all the uneven boards together, and then creating this little Z pattern, which basically just secures and squares up the door so it doesn't fall down.
Yeah, that's a nice door.
Yeah. Now hanging it.
Once we got the door built, next step is to fit the roof on the interior of the smokehouse, and then of course hang the door. I've got my smoke outputting by a chimney, and then the actual smokehouse itself, so we could seal it, was an internal kind of plywood box. Once we got that bit done, we could actually start hanging the door and making sure that was all squared up.
The moment of truth. Not budging an inch. Hey!
We made a door.
That's a smokehouse.
Whereabouts want it to smoke?
Oh, wherever you naturally.
That's comfortable. That's like arm height.
Yeah.
As you're lifting up.
Yeah.
You should have left the one end pointed so that water doesn't sit on top. Can you make this end pointed?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you should do that.
So again, using up materials that are around us, that door handle was made out of a piece of firewood because it is what we had available, and I just took out the center with my axe and then rounded off the
Ready to go.
front.
Can you see in the smoker? Oh, wow. Smoke is going to come from the firebox down there, and the smoke will come up and then go out the top of the chimney. And this is entirely other than the plywood made from all
Scrap.
scrap. I guess we can call it reclaimed lumber. And then all of the shingles clearly have been used previously.
Which we got for free from a guy taking shingles down off of his place.
Okay, and then the next thing we need to do is build like a little platform. So we're gonna put a bunch of stones above where the smoke comes out, so they'll pull off
A bit of a filter.
yeah, a bit of a filter basically. And we need to build 4 more racks and then have
What are the racks for?
to put the actual botanicals on that we're going to be smoking.
Right.
And then build the rails so we can slide the rocks in and out. And then we just need to clean out the firebox and then do a test run.
What do you think, Etta? Hey.
Okie dokie. So we're out here in the woods, and I got a nice pile of rocks. I'm gonna take all these rocks, load them up into the back of the Cat, which has a dump truck on it. These are gonna act as our smoke filter, basically.
Oh, what are you doing? Did you get out? Hi, good girl. Hey. Hi. Bye.
Not only are these rocks acting as a kind of creosote and tar filter, but they are also acting as a smoke diffuser, so that instead of just a singular column of smoke rising up, it's diffused a little more broadly.
I got about that much. That's probably enough.
And then, of course, it's important to thoroughly wash those rocks because they're going to be sitting here over this screen and our smoke's going to filter over it. Now that we got the screen done, we got the rocks in there, we're building a little bit of an air intake, we got the racks and rails finished, And the last thing to do is do a little test fire up so we can burn off any residual moisture that was left in those rocks, and then seal up the door with a little bit more plywood so we can have some kind of control over the draft and the smoke actually leaving the smokehouse. And then we got ourselves a fully fledged smokehouse ready to rock and roll. And in the next video, we are going to actually smoke some juniper and give you a full rundown of why on earth we are doing this.